Oh, man, I guess I got to give the official Seth warning today that there's some not exactly clean, safe for work stuff in the intro today.
Yeah, shit happens, so I guess we got to go on.
Well, there you go. I think that's the perfect way to start us off. Here we go, man. It's Friday.
This is not a mistake with their immigration system. This is the point of their immigration system. Fuck Donald Trump. Fuck every single person who is an accomplice in this. It's disgusting. This is Nazi shit.
Sorry, Seth. It is Friday, January 19th, 2018. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder, Raging Chicken Press. Each week, I talk to our Capitol muckraker in chief, Sean Kitchen, about the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. In today's show, it's Shutdown Friday. As of this morning, we are on a path toward a government shutdown at midnight tonight unless the Senate agrees to pass the House's continuing resolution for the budget. The GOP is just doing its best to hold children's health hostage and stage a conflict between children's health and undocumented workers. Undocumented immigrants, actually. So far, Senate Democrats and a handful of Republicans are not willing to vote for the CR unless a DACA solution and funding for children's health care is accomplished. Will Senate Democrats be able to hold their ground, or will they flinch? In the meantime, Trump seems committed to launching mass deportations. Trump's deportations still have not reached Obama levels, but they're on their way and accompanying an overt racist message. Kind of makes it feel a little bit more icky. And remember, we're just a week out from Trump's shithole comment, so there's the context for that. Good thing Stormy Daniels is out there to provide for some distraction. She says she can describe Trump's junk perfectly. This is our presidential politics right now, folks. Porn stars describing the sitting president's junk. That's right. Can't believe it. Fracking lobbyists plan to spend a big chunk of money at Trump's D.C. hotel. No conflicts of interest there. And this is interesting. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, announces a new Conscious and Religious Freedom Division, apparently for policing gay wedding cakes. Are we seeing the rise of an Appalachian Norma Rae? Paula Jean Swearengin will be taking on Democrat Joe Manchin, Democrat in name only, in the West Virginia Democratic primary. Man, she's a firebrand, I'll tell you that. Department of Justice drops charges against 129 of the J20 defendants. And Congressional Republicans using U.S. Capitol Police to go after the quote-unquote alt-left, otherwise known as constituents, who speak out against their disastrous policies. Darryl Metcalf says only mommies and daddies can be on birth certificates. Stop touching me. Pittsburgh Post-Gazette post op-ed defending racism on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Everything is off its axis, people. Pittsburgh's largest philanthropic organization, the Heinz Foundation, gives the Post-Gazette the Game of Thrones shame treatment. Note to our listeners, Sean has now officially made his first Game of Thrones reference. Not sure he's actually watched the series yet, though. The Newspaper Guild of Pittsburgh pens a letter to the Post-Gazette editors denouncing the racist editorial. The Post-Gazette declines to publish it, so the Guild publishes it on Facebook. Pennsylvania Democrats finally drafting a sexual harassment plan a year and a half since a delegate was assaulted at the 2016 DNC convention. Way to get on it, folks. Got your coffee now? Pennsylvania gerrymandering case throwing out the congressional maps makes it to the heavily Democratic state Supreme Court. Sean was there to watch people walk out. Posse begins search for a new chancellor. They're seeking somebody who's a visionary leader to guide the system redesign, a.k.a. screw public higher education in the state. On today's last call, the privatization of space not off to a great start as SpaceX and Boeing are behind schedule to get humans to the International Space Station. You know what that means? You know who we rely on now? Russia. How awesome is that? Is Luxembourg positioning itself to be the mecca for the privatization of space? Looks like it. And if you're in the Percy area, you can watch the NFC Championship game between the Eagles and Vikings this coming Sunday at the Free Will Brewing Tap Room in Percy. It's going to have great food and good time. Saucony Creek Brewery in Kutztown just spilled the beans on their upcoming Mardi Gras release, Buckwheat King Cake. And Pizza Boy releases a barrel-aged wild sour called Blueberry Permasmile. Yeah. Remind everybody to tune into the Rick Smith Show on Free Speech TV this and every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'll be there not this week, maybe next week, since my schedule is straightening it out. But you can stream the show live at freespeech.org. You can also tune in on the Dish Network, DirecTV, or through the Free Speech TV app on Roku. If you like what you hear at Raging Chicken, why don't you become a member? We don't have any new members this week, Sean. But you want to support Pull No Punches Progressive Media? Well, then become a member of Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. Not ready to become a member? No problem. You can make a one-time donation by going to ragingchickenpress.org and click on the Support and Membership tab. Click on Donate, and you're good to go. I want to remind everybody that we have our Winter 2018 membership special on right now. Now through the end of February, you can get your own copy of Steven Singer's new book, Gadfly on the Wall, A Public School Teacher Speaks Out on Racism and Reform. All you got to do is join at the $10 a month level. $10 a month, folks. And I want to just kind of put this on folks' radar. In a couple weeks from now, we'll talk a little bit about this a little bit later. Keystone Progress is going to have its annual summit, and Raging Chicken Press will be there in force. We hope to see a lot of you out there in Harrisburg, something that we've done every year. And they've got a new director of Keystone Progress out there, Dan, and I'm wishing him luck on his organizing his first conference, summit, we should say. Should be a good time. Raging Chicken will have a table, so we'll hope to see you out there. Sean, man, welcome. Welcome.
How's everything going?
Yeah, it's been cold, it's been warm, had some snow days. Kids been off from school. It's thrown my whole kind of work plan for getting ready for the semester in the shitter. So, other than that, it's all fine, man. It's all good.
Well, that's cool. I like to start off the show sometimes talking about the riverfront, and how nice it is up here. And, for the past, few weeks, since the middle of December, we had this, 6-inch, 8-inch sheet of ice covering the whole entire Susquehanna, going from, the dam all the way up through the Rockville Bridge. And now the ice has broken apart, and now we have a bunch of ice jams lining up the river.
Are you guys seeing flooding?
No, we haven't seen any flooding, but there's a bunch of ice piling up on the sides of the banks.
Yeah.
Thankfully, nothing is jammed up completely. But there's a part of the river between an island and the bank that is just completely jammed up with ice that's just not moving. But it's been pretty cool seeing that. People are taking their selfies, they're walking out on the ice jams, going like this, taking their pictures, and Penn Live is posting them. And people are like, don't do that.
I was nothing like encouraging people to walk out on an ice jam and wait, go out there, risk your life. You might get to if the breaks apart, you might lose your life, but at least you'll have your selfie posted in the the local paper.
But no, the jam is some of those blocks of ice up there. Oh my God, I can't believe how massive they are. These things are 6, 7, 8 inches thick.
Wow.
Solid sheets of ice. I went out shooting pictures a few weeks ago. I went about 10 or 15 feet out on the ice off the bank, but pretty much the ice was so thick it was going down to the bedrock at that point. Uh-huh. So I wasn't going out in the middle of the mile-wide Susquehanna trying to get my picture taken.
Yeah,
but
right. Well, that could be freaky. Can you actually hear the ice, the ice grinding and stuff?
No, not right now off the river, but some of the ice jams is taking up the whole entire river walk, which is the bottom part of the river. So you have like the green belt, you have like the bike trail up top on the top street level, and then like 20 feet down or 15 feet down, you have like a walkway along the riverfront, the actual riverfront, and that is just completely covered in an ice jam up and down the bank, which is pretty cool. I mean, like the ice is like 15, 20 feet up in the air, like accumulating.
Wow, man! I mean, I don't think it's well. Who knows? Who knows? It might still be there when I'm out in Harrisburg next for the summit. But
oh yeah, this shit's not going away anytime soon. I mean, there's still ice flowing down the river at this point.
Oh really? Because it's I mean, it could give way, right? Because it's supposed to get warm.
Yeah, it's gonna get warm, but I don't see this stuff melting or going away anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, crazy. Well, there we have it.
I mean, last year at this time it was like 55 degrees and sunny, and now there's ice jams going up and down the river.
There you go. So
this is my first time actually seeing an ice jam like this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's my first in my lifetime, like ever seeing anything like this, like along the riverfront.
Well, you're close enough to the river. How close are you, like where your apartment is to where the ice jams are?
I am so there's ice jams all over the place up and down the river. So if I look out, like there's an ice jam, say with the one island there that's extending like 20 feet out into the river. Mm-hmm. So you could just see the currents are just going a lot faster because they're getting pushed in towards the center.
Right.
There's been no flooding yet. I am in the 500-year floodplain, but I'm not.
Well, it's interesting because if you ever hear, I mean, I don't know if you'll be able to hear it or not, but when ice jams give way, they make the freaking eeriest sound, right? It's just like it's kind of like a car crash in slow motion combined with like creaky old haunted house kind of stuff. It's crazy stuff. And sometimes you hear, I mean, like giant, they almost sound like explosions where, the big sheets of ice crack and just pop in this loud thing. It's spooky, man.
Yeah. Well, I'd never really experienced anything like that growing up in the middle of Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's true. But me being in the snow belt, right, and having a grandmother in Niagara Falls, I got to see lots of I'm sorry you were deprived of that as a child.
I think it's pretty cool. It makes for great photos.
There you have it, man. So, so that's just in time. So if you're looking for something to do, especially if you're a federal worker this weekend and you know that you might not be back to work on Monday because of a impending government shutdown, go out and look at an ice jam. That's what you're going to do.
Maybe have Senator Toomey out in the middle of one.
Yeah, let's just put him out there and let him sit there on the river for a while. That'd be great. Put a little house. Tell him that it's the best time for ice fishing, igloo. And let him stay. But I mean, so we're here. Here we are on the precipice tonight. The House has passed a continuing resolution to try to keep the government operating. Right. This is the second time, I think. Right. Second time so far that they've passed the buck on actually getting a budget. And it looks like they're going to hold children's health care, right, the CHIP program, hostage. And try to pit that politically against Democrats' demand that they will not agree to sign on to this budget, to this continuing resolution if there's not a solution for DACA recipients. And I think that just made all the more stark this week as we see the Trump administration basically ramping up its efforts to just do full-on terrorism to immigrant communities around the country. I mean, I don't know how much you've been following this week, Sean, but man, it's been some of the images of just fathers and mothers being dragged away from their kids is just is heart wrenching.
Yeah, I have not been following the story, but I have seen some of the images that are happening, and I mean, he's doing what he said he would do.
Well, he is, and I think that what. It's interesting because I've been reading a bunch of stuff about this too as well. I mean, you watch the images and you watch these, like literal roundups. I mean, there's people that under DACA, right? Part of the agreements under DACA was that you had to check in, right? I mean, the idea is you come out of the shadows and to qualify for DACA, you go and you check in with an immigration official, right, for an ICE official. Just to say, okay, everything's above board, right? If you break the law or do anything like that in the meantime, then you're gone, right? But now there's actually people who have to report for the regular meetings, and they're just being grabbed right there and then shipped away. It's pretty incredible, and I think that one of the things that blew my mind the most is that on the one hand you've got just the roundups. And you also have the removal of certain protections, right? This temporary protected status, right? This was granted to people that were in disaster zones or kind of horrific, dangerous areas like El Salvador and Haiti and things like this.
Shithole countries.
Yeah, the shithole countries, according to Donald Trump. But they were given this temporary protected status and precisely recognized that they were like just in absolute life or death situation. So Haitian, refugees who basically, after over 100,000 people or something like this who were killed in that that earthquake several years back, they were given temporary protective status. Salvadorans who there was a combination of natural disasters and just kind of like all out drug war where people were getting killed left and right. Were given temporary protective status in the country. Trump is revoking these. And so, again, these are people that fled the country, right? El Salvador, then, is not exactly keen on taking them back. So one of the things that broke this week, which was just, you talk about something that's disgusting. This was published in Al Jazeera and some other places, is that the government of El Salvador is basically saying, okay, Trump is kicking you out, but you're not exactly going to come right back to El Salvador. We're going to cook up a deal with the Republic of Qatar, right, over there in the Middle East, right? We're going to...
It has huge problems with slavery that is going on right now.
Exactly.
And huge problems with the stuff with the FIFA World Cup. And, they're using immigrant slave labor to build these institutions.
And this is
to build the soccer stadiums.
Yep.
And it has many people, thousands of people have died building Qatar and building up. I believe Qatar is where FIFA's at, right? The World Cup?
I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure but it's one of these countries that still uses slavery as an institution, or the institution of slavery.
Yeah, and basically what they're looking at doing is the Salvadoran government say, yeah, guess what? We got some people for you. All right, we got some people for you, so we're just going to send them over there, and basically you can have them as kind of indentured servants, right? And they're saying that, and look, we don't just have manual laborers. We've got engineers and some professionals, and they said they'll be really good for you. So this is kind of what, you're basically watching, right? Again, this goes to sci-fi and my dystopian science fiction really fast. So this is like you're watching the beginning of kind of like a system of indenture, right, as the result of what Donald Trump and his administration are doing, and it's disgusting.
Yes, and it is Qatar that has the World Cup.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's incredible. It's incredible. I actually finished this sci-fi novel over during my academic break called Autonomous. And without getting all into the details of it, but one of the ways that it's organized, right, is basically in a structure where you've seen such a kind of a gross disparity of wealth and concentration of the wealth in the hands of so few people that not only do you get the kind of the rise of the kind of the robots, conscious robots and things like this, but you also get like a system of human indenture. Right, that kind of takes the place for work because wealth is so concentrated. And like when I saw this happen this week, I'm like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. I mean, this is what it is. So that's nuts. So in other news, there's also this story that just broke about that they're finding out. McClatchy had this piece that basically says finds that basically follow the money and find out that the NRA seems to have been the recipient of a bunch of kind of dark money from Russia, right, to help influence Trump. I mean, NRA in this last election saw kind of record spending, and something along the lines of $20 million seems to have been funneled to the NRA from Russia. That is alone disturbing. I mean, always makes me happy. But then you also got this other thing that's wanted to put on people's radar. This blew my mind. Is that in the midst of the government kind of one tonight potentially shutting down, two, the Trump administration virtually gutting every institution and division that is about protecting people, right? For like the EPA and so on, for example, the State Department basically being bled dry of kind of career diplomats and career professionals. But they do have money and time and effort to establish a new division that's called the Conscious and Religious Freedom Division, which is basically going to kind of make sure that if somebody says they have a religious problem with serving somebody, or, because they're, I don't know, gay or black or whatever,
Muslim.
Now you've got a government
Jewish.
division that is there to make sure that your rights are protected. That's freaking crazy. I don't know. Yep. And then in the list of this, just kind of rapid fire list here, just of I kind of mentioned at the top. Here you go. This was a big issue. I remember about this as when right after the election, there were all these questions about conflict of interest and is Trump, what's he going to do with these conflict of interest? And one of the kind of shining examples of this was the new, basically Trump International Hotel in D.C. Right, which is basically and it was a sketchy deal to begin with, in part because it's actually a government property that's leased to to this for-profit hotel that's a Trump hotel, and that has now been the place where international diplomats and anybody who wants kind of to get on Trump's good side, that's where they arrange their conferences and kind of receive lawmakers. Why? Well, because you put a little in Trump's pocket, right? You might kind of do good. So. You got the big money fracking lobbyists are now going to spend, a kind of a nice time in a D.C. hotel. Where is it? It is from March 5th to the 7th. And I'm hoping that there is going to be plenty of protest around that Trump hotel. The agenda is publicly available, so this is not something that is secret. And it's going to be, you have a keynote speaker. You've got the politics editor from Fox News, Chris Steyerwalt, will be giving a keynote. And then on Tuesday, you have a policy breakfast with none other than House Majority Whip Steve Scalise, all in the luxurious setting of the Trump International Hotel.
So is he going to bring his hood to that?
Yeah, you would hope, right? I'm sure he's going to show off his wound, right? He's going to say, hey, these people, they're coming after us. They tried to shoot me, right? But they couldn't stop me, and nor can they stop you from fracking the shit out of this country to thunderous applause, right? I mean, I can see it happening. Yeah, exactly. I wonder if Trump is actually going to make a little appearance on that, right? He said, I love pipes. I've always loved pipes. It's nuts, man. So crazy. And, if things couldn't get any weirder, we now have a porn star, Stormy Daniels, right, basically saying that she can describe Trump's junk.
It is the biggest thing I've ever seen in my life.
It's I
am 6'3" and I weigh 239 pounds, and I am good as any NFL linebacker in the world.
Exactly. I love those pairings. That was the best thing ever. When Trump's you're 6'3". How's it? 200 what?
39.
239 pounds. And then I don't know if people saw this on Twitter, but then people kept on posting, here's an athlete who is 6'3" and 230, 240 pounds, and here's a picture of Trump. How
crawling
are these
up a hill on all fours at the golf course.
Right, exactly. I mean, just unbelievable.
All I'm going to say about that is I don't know anyone who's in their 70s and is over 230 pounds that is healthy.
No.
That is considered healthy. And it's just the fuse is lit at that point.
Well, and I love the other one, too. Well, which baffles me.
I like what my one friend said. So really, he's 6 foot and 280 pounds.
Something like that. Well, did you see the pictures? They got a picture of him standing next to Obama, right?
Yeah,
and if he's the same height, if not slightly shorter than Obama,
eyes are a little bit above Trump's eyes,
right. And Obama was 6'1", right? So I mean, that's just the kind of the world we're in right now, where he's going to lie about anything, right? If you can't have it the way it is, it's got to be better somehow. You got to pump yourself up just a little bit more. It's crazy. But here, I just want people to soak this in. This is from BuzzFeed News. Okay, now it broke earlier this week in the In Touch magazine when Stormy Daniels apparently gave an interview to In Touch magazine back in 2011, and they held on to it. They didn't publish it, and then Trump they found out that she was basically paid off right before this election, $130,000 to $130,000 to shut up, right, and not tell her story before the presidential election. And now we're finding out that it wasn't just her. There was a bunch of people that Trump's lawyer Cohen basically set up shell corporations in order to pay these folks. I mean, literally, he set up LLCs, and that's just crazy, right? But apparently, so this interview that she did with In Touch has just been sitting around, and so they're like, okay, I think it's a good time to publish it. So let me just read just the first 3 paragraphs of this story, just to kind of like get us all in the same space of surrealism about this is where we're at right now. So here it is. Quote, the adult film star who claims she had a sexual relationship with Donald Trump in 2006 said in an interview with a magazine in 2011 that she could, quote, describe his junk perfectly, unquote, and that they did not use protection when having sex. In an interview with In Touch Weekly that year, a full transcript of which is released Friday, Stephanie Clifford, known as Stormy Daniels, said that sex with Trump was, quote, textbook generic, and that he, quote, never mentioned his wife Melania, and that he watched TV obsessively. The transcript was published 2 days after the magazine published a story featuring some of these details, as well as the fact that Trump promised to get Clifford a role on the TV show The Apprentice, now wait for this, which he hosted at the time, and that he compared her to his daughter. That is just like
that's like worse than Woody Allen.
Totally.
I mean, like, Woody Allen's a scumbag, and this is like worse than that.
This is like literally saying, like, you know, when we were having sex the other day, I just couldn't help but thinking about my daughter. I just kept on saying, I'm sorry I called you Ivanka. I mean, I didn't mean to do that, but you just remind me so much of my daughter. I mean, that is just like vomit all over my mic now. But, you know, and I'm sorry to force everybody to hear that, but I mean, it just, I don't know what to do with shit
this
like
is what
that.
we're dealing with.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's
yeah.
I mean, try not to make jokes about it, but no, this is the shit we're dealing with. This is our politics at this point.
No, that's right. You know, Sean, and I was thinking, you know, we talked a little bit about this, I think, last week, but there's something about taking a little bit of a break, like a hiatus to a certain degree. I mean, like a mental break just for a couple of weeks over the holidays. I'm coming back with 2018, you know, saying like, you know, following the kind of the nuances of the internal drama, stuff like this, is at the point where I'm just kind of like, I just can't do it.
Right? Our show notes is like maybe like 30 bullet points long right now.
No, exactly, right?
It's just from last week.
Right. But, you know, and the thing is that, you know, there's I could, you know, at some level, I could care less what he's tweeting at this point. The only thing that you can do realistically, if you care about the future of kind of like our future, our collective future, is to start kind of like looking at his practices and what they're doing. And this stuff from Stormy Daniels and the publication of that just kind of puts it into that relief for me. It's saying this is the insanity that I use that word loosely, elected. Right, that's the guy that's elected, and this is the clown show that we've got going on. And meanwhile,
Overt's going to fix everything.
Yeah, we're seeing a decimation of what's going on. But, anyways, so to move into the kind of the realm of the real, right? I am happy to say that I mean, I don't know if you saw this at all, Sean. Paula Jean Swearengin is going to be challenging Joe Manchin in the West Virginia primary.
I have seen a little bit of that. I have not read the story, the Indies Times story, but I do know she is a very progressive Democrat, and she comes from a coal miner family.
Yep.
And she wants to run a Bernie Sanders style campaign in West Virginia, and Joe Manchin's like, bring it on.
Yep. So this is going to be great. I mean, here's an example of one of the things she said. This is from Indies Times, and she said, like, you know, she's talking about she comes from a coal family, right? And she said, unlike the rich Clampers from the Beverly Hills Hillbillies, which people, you know, compare to and stuff like this, who struck black gold in the land, Swearengin is critical of the energy industry, especially coal, which she told the forum, standing room only crowd, blah blah blah, that she had led her to a relative's deaths by way of black lung disease. Quote, I saw my grandfather suffocate to death, unquote, thundered the 43-year-old single mother of four. Quote, I'm not going to worship a black rock. The forum at which she was speaking was billed as a New Year's Revolution Party, was organized by the Justice Democrats, a federally political action committee which endorsed 51 Senate and House candidates. That's a Cenk Uygur's kind of organization, right?
Well, he's out of that now.
Oh, he's out of that now?
Yes, after the stories that was released, but no, it's still he's still supporting them, but he's not with them anymore.
Oh, gotcha.
But these are like the Bernie Democrats that are planning on running.
This is great stuff. I mean, the fact is,
and we have a few of them, Justice Democrats, running right here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
Molly Sheehan is one of them. She is running in the Pennsylvania 7th Congressional District. and she's running, as a unabashed progressive.
Yeah, and I have to say, he's like, the more I read about her, the more I like her. I've been back and forth with some of her people a little bit. I'm going to try to get her on as an Out the Coop extra, talk a little about running in the 7th and see kind of see what's going on. So look forward to that, folks, because I think it's going to be kind of incumbent on us in part to highlight some of these folks that are running on the most progressive campaigns in the state. And one of the things that I saw in this piece, about Paula Jean Swearengin's run in West Virginia, is that when I watched a bunch of videos of her speaking and some of the discussions, interviews that she's given, is that what kind of struck me is like, look, she has given voice to a whole segment of the of like coal workers that is basically unseen in the midst of this kind of like, we have to defend coal at all costs. And because very often the way that the kind of the right wing positions coal, right, the way that Joe Manchin, right, positions coal is like, we got to kind of save the jobs and save the workers, right? But what about all the workers whose lives have been destroyed, right, who they've been killed as a result of this industry? The fact that she's coming forward and giving voice to that and challenging this picture in people's heads about coal miner workers and what that has meant for the for that state, I'm so happy to see it. So,
and also one last word about Justice Democrat.
Yeah, please.
Jess King, who is running in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, against Lloyd Smucker, is a Justice Democrat, and she raised $300,000 in the final quarter of 2017, which is the most any first-time candidate has ever raised in that district.
Unbelievable.
And they're doing it through small dollar donations.
This is great stuff, man. This is great stuff. So if there's any time to ever get kind of active in actually kind of like official politics, now is the time, folks. Right? Now is the time to get involved locally and kind of back some of these candidates and pay attention to them. What maybe we can start doing kind of as we kind of getting closer to primaries and stuff, or maybe the end of this month, maybe in February, and we can do this. We're going to start just kind of doing rundowns of these candidates, right, and give you some profiles, how to get in touch with these people, and how to support these folks doing their work. So it's crazy. Another thing that Sean has been following this now for a while, right? He knows some people have been involved in this, so we keep on coming back. We try to keep update on this. But, Sean, you kind of, put this on the agenda today, right? We see that the Department of Justice dropped charges against 129 of the J20 defendants.
Yes. I personally know a couple of people who were arrested. I don't know the status of their cases, but, for anyone who does not know, there was over 200 protesters arrested at the Trump inauguration back in back last year at this time, and they were in the area of vandals or people using black bloc tactics of breaking windows and shattering storefronts, and the police pretty much kettled everyone together, mass arrested everyone just for simply being there, even though they were not involved with this with these actions, and charged them to the point where they could have faced like 50, 60 years in jail if they were convicted on these charges. And, after the first couple batches of J20 defendants were found not guilty, the Department of Justice quietly drops the charges against 129 of these defendants. And there are still about 50 left that are still being tried, haven't been dropped yet. I do not know the status of the people I know, their cases with this. But I can tell you one thing from personal experiences of talking to these people. This has been a personal hell for them to have to deal with over the past year, traveling back between Philadelphia or Harrisburg and Washington, D.C. Consistently for the past year, for this. They spent like at least 3 days in jail. A lot of people – and actually, the funny thing is it kept a lot of the people together, talked about they all knew each other. They all became friends after this, but the organizers and the activists in this, who were spent time in jail together. So they were simply in the wrong place, wrong time, and finally most of their cases have been dropped.
Well, and I think that it is also we should highlight the fact that that some of these folks who were arrested, were seasoned activists, right, who knew about how to organize for things like jailhouse solidarity, kind of connecting up with kind of public defenders and things like this who actually kind of do this, will kind of work them and basically use it as also as an opportunity to help continue to solidify this group of folks, right? I mean, I think that's kind of really important too as well. So because there were some people, just like you said, they weren't causing problems. They were just in this place that the police decided to kettle. But then they also kind of use that as, maximize that as an organizing opportunity to say, look, we're going to be all in this together. Crazy. So tell us about this. So that's a good news actually coming out of D.C. that we're seeing that we got 129 of the charges dropped. Do we know about the status of kind of the remaining defendants?
I still think their cases are still going to be brought to trial at this point.
Yeah, because there were some that were already the first round, right? Had gone through the first round,
and they were found not guilty because they were going to try them 5 or 6 at a time.
Right. So the cases are still proceeding, but just not with all of them, I guess.
Yes.
Okay. Now, this is the other thing that was kind of like a little bit disturbing, is that we see that Congressional Republicans are using U.S. Capitol Police to basically go after people who are kind of protesting their policies, right? I mean, and they're saying that we're using them to go after the alt left, when really we're talking about
the alt left specifically. The alt left was a term I threw in there because Costello, Pennsylvania representative, has been using the alt left as a moniker to go after constituents over the past several months, over the past year actually, since the election. So basically, what's happening here. I don't know if it's a trend yet, but Senator Tom Cotton and Representative Tom Costello are using U.S. Capitol Police to go after demonstrators and to go after angry constituents and to go after campaign opponents. So basically, there's 2 stories here. Senator Tom Cotton, his office sent out a bunch of cease and desist letters to activists and constituents who are calling his office, constantly calling his office, and consistently showing up to his offices, basically saying that they're threatening the senator, they're threatening the safety of the staff, and that they are only reserving this in the most extreme cases possible. This is a form of intimidation. This is a form of, basically a way to shut out your constituency. This is pure authoritarianism. Coming from people who don't value the First Amendment. They skip over the First Amendment, go right to the Second Amendment, pretty much.
Right.
So what happened locally, there's a story here at Tom Costello. Supposedly, he claimed that campaign aides from one of his primary challengers, not like primaries in the primary race, but primary Democratic challenger, the favorite, was trespassing at his home property and harassing and berating his wife and kids. And he put out a vague statement saying that they are that to keep the family out of this, and that he reported it to the police. The West Goshen police said nothing criminal has happened, but Costello is still using the U.S. Capitol Police to investigate campaign aid opponents, or the aides of his campaign opponent is maybe a better way to put it. But and Costello has a history over the past few months, and pretty much since the whole Tuesday with Toomey stuff has happened, and the indivisible movement has popped up. He's been using the term alt left to go after using alt left to go after the people within the indivisible movement, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, this is these are disturbing tendencies, and this is I've been doing it kind of goes along what I was mentioning earlier about coming into 2018 and trying to I don't know, stepping back is the wrong word. It's more like kind of, okay, we need to start thinking more strategically as opposed to just kind of responding to every little piece of shit that's thrown our way. Because I start looking at these things, because these are really, if you take a sobering moment, these are disturbing developments.
Resources to go after your political opponents.
Exactly.
That is authoritarianism. That is fascism. Exactly. That is, communism or any type of authoritarian governments have used this type of stuff to go after their opponents, and this is what they're doing right now. They're using the police wing, they're using the legal wing to harass, intimidate, and go after their opponents.
Right, and you can imagine, in cable news programs, right, it wouldn't think twice about having a major story about this if this was something that was happening in Russia, right, or if this is something that started happening in France
or Iran or China.
Exactly. Right.
Or
these would be
North Korea. This
Right, and it would confirm, those stories would confirm things in people's minds in this country, like, oh yeah, there's an authoritarian government, oh yeah, look how bad it is there, blah, 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 blah. But when we see it here, right, there's, and I don't know exactly how to kind of explain it, other than we don't have a well-established frame to put it in people's minds that, no, it's actually happening here too as well. Yes, it's not at the extent that it's happening, like in a place like, say, China or kind of like some other authoritarian regimes, but we're seeing movement in that direction. And the movement in that direction is what the problem is. It's not an on-off switch. It's not just like, are we an authoritarian or not, right? That's not the only option, right? There's kind of which direction are we going? Are we going more towards an open society, more towards democratic, more towards equality? Are we going more towards authoritarianism? And I think there's no way to make an argument other than we are moving toward an authoritarian regime.
Yeah, I mean, there's just no way of putting that's where we're going.
That's exactly it. Well, look, so this is all the more reason, folks, that I want anyone who's like listened to us today. Really take the opportunity to kind of seek out some of the folks that are running into these local districts around the state, that are running kind of really progressive campaigns, that are coming out of the Bernie Sanders wing of the party, that are coming out of the DSA wing of kind of political organization, and support them and get involved. And, if you're out there, if you're listening to this and you are working with any of these candidates, right, we've mentioned a couple today, but if you're working with any of these candidates, just get in touch with me. Just shoot me an email at editor@ragingchickenpress.org. That's editor@ragingchickenpress.org. Let me know what candidate you're kind of supporting. Send me any kind of materials you have, and if we can set up an interview with that person, that'd be fantastic. We'll get them on. We'll have an Out the Coop Extra, right, to kind of help spread the word, right? We want to do our part, right, is actually kind of getting behind some of the folks that are running progressive campaigns. And one of the things that we've said before is that, look, we don't see, and I say that this is actually something that distinguishes the organization or the organizing that's going on now from previous years, is that these candidates, these kind of like what we see coming out of the indivisible movement, the DSA organizing and so on, the Bernie Sanders wing, the Justice Democrats, our Revolution people, is that what we see happening here is that people have got their eyes on sustainable organizing, not just kind of like one and done. Let's get a great candidate and then we're going to be done. Let's actually organize for the long haul. So that's the reason why we should get involved right now.
I will tell you this, in Montgomery County, I was at the Supreme Court hearing this past week, standing outside of it, was able to talk to some people from the Montgomery County area, central Montgomery County. I heard this statistic thrown out there, and this might absolutely shock you. There are 11 first-time women candidates running in Montgomery County alone, all coming from the indivisible chapters. And they are all running outside of the traditional Democratic establishment. It's your typical Democratic establishment infrastructure.
That is freaking awesome.
Yeah,
that is freaking awesome.
They're running for House seats and they're running for Senate seats. So
there you have it. Because remember, folks, part of what it means to support these candidates, right, is like, look, is that obviously you run to win, right? You run a campaign and you do your best actually to win. But part of what you're doing over the long haul is that you're moving the ball in a direction that is more progressive, is more to the left, that reflects the progressive values of this wings of the party. That's why we support these movements. I
will say this. I firmly believe, I'm going to write this now, I firmly believe that we are going to see a thrashing in this state, especially in the southeastern part of the county, the state that we saw in Virginia when it comes to the election coming up in 2018. There's going to be a thrashing on that ballot box, on those ballots, going up and down the ticket. You're going to have extremely unpopular candidates running in Lou Barletta and Scott Wagner for governor. You're going to have an unpopular Trump. These people are already scared of Donald Trump, and they're scared of the possibility of what's going to be happening to them. There's going to be a lot of jobs that are going to be lost in the southeastern part of the state, and there's going to be a lot less Republicans on that in the legislature this time next year.
Well, write it down, folks. January 19th, 2018, Sean Kitchen's predictions for what's coming up. And we hope that we're going to be back at the end of this election season to say, Sean told you so. But for now, I want to remind everybody, look, you can support this work that we're doing here. You can support Sean Kitchen's predictions right here by becoming a member of Raging Chicken Press. That is really, it's the bread and butter, folks. I mean, that's what keeps everything moving. That's what keeps us going. That's what allows us to do the work that we're doing, and we're going to need it now more than ever as we move really seriously now into this election season. So please go to patreon.com/rcpress. Choose your membership level. You can become a member for as little as $5 a month. Remember, if you become a member at the $10 a month level, we will send you a copy of Steven Singer's new book, Gadfly on the Wall, A Public School Teacher Speaks Out on Racism and Reform. So become a member of Raging Chicken Press. Help with the real resistance, not the sham resistance, the people who are here on the ground that we are trying to give a spotlight to and kind of help support the movement. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We'll be back right after this break.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1909. That was the day Lewis Hine photographed child workers standing on spinning frames to mend threads and replace empty bobbins at the Bib Mill No. 1 in Macon, Georgia. It was just one example of the appalling use of children in industrial labor. Hine built his career on photographic portraits of young miners and mill workers, child cotton pickers, and factory workers. In 1908, he was hired by the National Child Labor Committee to document child laborers across the country. For the next 15 years, Hine would contribute over 5,000 photographs to the cause of ending child labor. Photo historian Dale Kaplan described the ways in which Hine captured these images, writing, "Hine, the gentleman actor and mimic, assumed a variety of personas, including Bible salesman, postcard salesman, and industrial photographer, making a record of factory machinery to gain entry into the workplace. When unable to deflect his confrontations with management, he simply waited outside the canneries, mines, factories, farms, and sweatshops with his 50 pounds of photographic equipment and photographed children as they entered and exited the workplace." NCLC investigators referenced the photographs in reports on particular industries and locations. The NCLC also used the photographs to illustrate its own publications and succeeded in placing them in newspapers, progressive publications, and exhibits. One NCLC poster that featured Hine's portrait read, "Making human junk. Shall industry be allowed to put these costs on society?" By 1912, the NCLC persuaded Congress to create a United States Children's Bureau. The two organizations worked together to investigate abuses of child laborers. Years of legislative and judicial battles followed, until finally, in 1938, Congress passed the Fair Labor Standards Act.
He's back.
Stop touching me. Stop touching me.
It's Daryl!
Chairman, you're yelling at a lady. I wish you would. President Bradford, I'm not yelling at anybody. I'm telling you, you're out of order. Please stop talking into the microphone now so we can receive our testimony. I'm a heterosexual. I have a wife. I love my wife. Stop touching me. Stop touching me. Beg, don't touch. I'm a heterosexual. I have a wife. I'm a heterosexual.
There he is, folks. Our favorite heterosexual from out in the western part of the state, Daryl Metcalf.
Daddy Daryl at it again.
There he is, man.
Daryl Metcalf.
So Daryl Metcalf, right, and 24 other Pennsylvania Republicans want to make sure that your birth certificate only says mommy and daddy, not parent. Here we go, man. Culture Wars 101.
Yep. Well, as we said before, and I'll say it again, Daryl Metcalf is the white nationalist and bigoted crack that keeps the Republican Party coming back for more. hitting that pipe. That's exactly what he is, and exactly what this is. This is nothing more than just throwing red meat out to the base for the bigots to come out and vote in 2018. This is like you put a crack pipe in front of an attic. This is what they do.
I am sampling that. I'll tell you that, man.
Daryl Metcalf.
crack pipe. I'm totally sampling that. That is going into our Daryl Metcalf soundboard. There's no way around it. Man, this is crazy. So, I mean, I don't know.
Daryl Metcalf. This is Daryl Metcalf every day of the week. This is Daryl. This is the biggest. This is like the. I sort of feel sorry for him. You know, I think he's like Lindsey Graham a little bit. You know, if you get what I'm getting at there. You know, the biggest open secret and or more of like a Rick Santorum. I don't know. He's so bigoted and homophobic that like just be.
He's a heterosexual, Sean. Did you not hear the? Did you? I mean,
stop.
He loves his wife. Stop touching me.
I don't know. That lisp is mighty strong in that video.
Oh my God. But so people don't know what we're talking about here. It's like, here's like basically what happened this week is that Daryl Metcalf like flipped a nut, right? And got a whole bunch of his like crack smoking Republicans like behind him to come out there and say
two
like,
of them who are running for office.
Yes.
Right now, Rick Saccone and Stephen Bloom. So if you're paying attention to the special election going on, please just give money to Conor Lamb. Yes, please. Because look, here's the deal, folks. Is like this shows you that they have nothing. That the fact that this is what they're doing. So basically, because if you recall, there's this law in the land now that doesn't allow you to discriminate, right, against kind of like marital status, right? Same-sex couples. Guess what? You can get married now, right? Supreme Court has even said you can get married now. So what happened with state houses now have to, or state agencies now have to adjust the way they operate to do this, you know?
Right, and so a very basic thing, right, to stay in compliance with this, but also say, hey, you know what, we got to, how do we do this in a way that's kind of like welcoming to everyone? So on the birth certificates, when you're born, under the Corbett administration, there was a change that basically said like mother/parent, right, and then for one line, and then father/parent on another line, right? So that change took place in what was it, 2015? 2015. Right? So now following additional rulings, Supreme Court rulings and so on, and we found this in the state that, everyone's got a kind of, marriage is there. How do you be equitable? Well, the Wolf administration just extended that policy and just removed like mother and father altogether. So it says parent and parent, right? So parent number one, parent number two. So instead of having to kind of associate yourself with like, I'm a parent, but I have to put myself in the father line. Instead of that, just here's your two parents, you write them down. Right, so incredibly uncontroversial, right? But not for Daryl Metcalf.
And the funny thing is, like, I know, like, a couple. So I know J.J. Abbott. Just being in the Capitol, as Governor Wolf's spokesperson. He's a great guy to talk to, funny person. If I was him, I would just be like, do I really have to make a comment on this? Like, are you really wasting my? Like, are you really asking me about this? Like, if I was in media, I'd be just like, really? I got to talk about this right now. And yes, put that down in the quote. Me saying, are you really asking me this question?
Yeah,
like,
right.
do I really have to explain this?
Right, exactly. But this is what they're trying to do.
Like
they're trying to whip
90% of people who aren't knuckle-dragging, mouth-breathing assholes in the state.
No, what it is, like, look, really, this is all about, and this is exactly what the right does, right?
It's about getting people out to vote. This is all about throwing red meat to the base. It's about being, throwing that bigoted bullshit out there.
Right,
so
but it's bigoted in a particular way, right? It's trying to convince people that they are under threat, that their way of doing things is under threat, that they personally are under threat, and it's even happening to babies now, Sean. Babies. What's that baby going to think when they get their birth certificate and it doesn't say mommy and daddy? What's going to happen when they look back and they have it framed on their wall and say, I don't even understand who I am anymore because it doesn't say mommy and daddy on my birth certificate? I mean, this is disgusting.
Two female parents. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, because for me, I know I on a routine basis, right? At least once a year, I have my annual birth certificate viewing ceremony that I hold to make sure that I'm clear about who my mother and who my father are, right? And so that I can feel good about my place in the world, right? And I know everybody else does this too as well. This is all going to be disrupted now, of course. Freaks, man.
The axial shift.
It's unbelievable.
The planet has been forever undone. We can't go back.
Yeah, well, you know what? Use that axial shift, and I do think, in Daryl Metcalf's terms, I do think that it is fitting that the only planet in our solar system that is tipped off its axis is Uranus. So, Daryl Metcalf, that one's to you, buddy.
Daryl Metcalf.
So, speaking about Daryl Metcalf, did you hear he has a position as an editorialist on the? He sits on the editorial board at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette.
Oh, I heard. Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. That's surprising because they're generally a very progressive paper, right?
Yeah. Like, I'm saying this facetiously, but
yeah, right, exactly.
I am not being serious. I had to explain myself this joke to a couple of people on Twitter over the weekend that no, Daryl Metcalf is not the racist shitbag who published the racism as reason op-ed.
Oh, Sean, just so you know, when you have to explain your jokes, it's
well, people take it as I look at it Poe's law. The satire is so real.
Yeah.
That it could be real. It's
right.
like the
No, just
section.
right. No, I think
it's
you're
like
right.
You're saying something so outlandish. Hey, it might be real. So on Martin Luther King Day, the Post-Gazette ran an op-ed. I don't have it in front of me because of the paywall, but I'm going to read this quick quote from The Incline, which is sort of like the Billy Penn of Pittsburgh, from that same media group. And it goes, here's the quick excerpt. If the president is wrong on immigration, on merit, on finding a balance between skilled and unskilled immigrants, on chain migration, on the lottery, let his opponents defeat him on these points, and not by calling him a racist. If he is to be removed from office, let the voters do it based on his total performance, temperament, as well as accomplishment in 2020. Simply calling him an agent of the Russians, a nutcase, or a racist is a cowardly way to fight. It goes on. We need to confine the word racist to people like Dylan Roof and Bull Connor. For if every person who speaks inelegantly or from a position of privilege or ignorance or express an idea we dislike or happens to be a white male is racist, the term is devoid of meaning. And the op-ed is named Reason as Racism.
Oh, my God.
They published this on Martin Luther King Day.
This is fucking unbelievable. I mean, it really is. I mean, you read this to me beforehand, and I hear it again, and it's still it's
and
as
this wasn't even originally
despicable.
published in the Post-Gazette. This was published in the Toledo Blade, which is owned by the same publishing family as the Post-Gazette. So let's just say there was a lot of rebuke to come from this.
Yeah. So okay, wait. You come on. We're gonna have you gotta come clean on this, Sean, because you put in the show notes today that this is the Game of Thrones shame treatment. You have not watched an episode of Game of Thrones.
I have never watched an episode of Game of Thrones.
All right. I just want to be clear about that. You're trying to freaking do your pop culture kind of little reference here, getting you some kind of I don't know, kind of edgy kind of film cred or something like this. But you have not, and you have certainly not read the book. So. Whatever, man. You want to freaking do Cersei Lannister right here by shame treatment when you don't know what you're talking about. Anyways, yeah, no, but I think it's totally fitting.
Yeah, and the Heinz Endowment, the Heinz Foundation,
which is, we should say, enormous, right? This is not just like a dinky little
it's like
foundation.
The size of like Carnegie, like
exactly.
Like having the name Heinz in front of your name is as big as a fucking deal as having the name Carnegie in front of your name on your building out in Pittsburgh. Like, the guy was a senator. He's at every single store, the ketchup brands and stuff like that, the condiments. The Heinz Foundation.
John Kerry's wife,
This is... So they published this they published a thing just called Shame, and they just fucking laid it on to the newspaper, which was absolutely ridiculous. Never really you don't see anything coming out of that, like you don't see like the William Penn Foundation or other large philanthropy groups publishing such a blog post like this in rebuke, but they had this thing up within like a few hours of that. Like, it was a lot of people sitting on the editorial board. Someone's like, listen, I will take blame for this, but I completely walk back anything that happened. Like, basically, like, I have no excuse for this happening because I sit on the editorial board, but it was not my decision, and it was completely disgusting.
Well, whose decision was it?
What's that?
Whose decision was it? Do we know?
It was most indications say it was John Block's John Block's decision, who is the owner of the Post-Gazette. He had a article with him last year. like the city paper published something basically saying that like he had a private meeting with Donald Trump on his private jet.
That's sickening.
So this guy's like a big Trumper.
Well, I'll tell you this because it's a shame because, like, you know, I said there's some for my money, some of the best reporting in the state comes out of the Post-Gazette and some of the journalists there. Some of the, like Bill Shackner, for example's cover of education is just like absolutely phenomenal. And so there's some there are some awesome journalists that are here. To see this on their pages, coming out of that paper, it just like turns my stomach.
So Dennis Roddy, who was Governor Corbett's like former shithead hatchet man and spokesperson. Actually, I think I met Roddy a couple times actually, so out here, but he's actually a nice person in person. And he basically said this. He laid it out, you know, in a statement. Saying racism should be restricted to Dylan Roof or Bull Connor changes the definition of racism in a way that makes progress impossible. Seriously. Do they think that today's racism is dominated by people with automatic weapons and police dogs? No. It's people in suits in comfortable suburbs or boardrooms who exclude. The racism that we have to fight these days is to some extent subtle. And to take the discussion off the table in that way is simply disastrous.
There you go.
That's Governor Corbett's former
exactly
spokesman.
And this is when you have like former right-wing Republican staffers, right?
I know this is the racism that we see with Daryl Metcalf, with Martina White, with people going after undocumented immigrants. Nick Miccarelli, who was at that press conference, Dush, who was at that press conference. You know, this is the racism that the Republican Party thrives on.
That's right. And you know what? What's in some ways,
and it's the bigotry that they thrive on too.
Yeah,
it's the
what's
exact
doubly
same bigotry that just happened with Daryl Metcalf going after the Department of Human Services simply because it says parents on the birth certificate.
No, exactly. And it's like one of the things that's like even like just and additionally disgusting about that editorial is because there sort of people, and this is kind of like one of these moves that the right makes, is that, you know, in that editorial to say that, you know, to go after to say somebody's like just a tool of Russia or to say somebody's racist is a cowardly way of fighting, right? Is that it gets people to bite on that, right? If they don't pay attention to things, right? Because look, in the abstract, right? If somebody is not a racist, right? If somebody is not in league with Russia and you're simply calling them that to gain political points, then that would have a problem. But we don't live in this abstract, disconnected world. We live in the real world. And in the real world, right, everything that freaking Donald Trump and his like hackneyed, mob-inflected administration does is racist, right? When you call whole countries and regions shitholes, that's a freaking racist statement. When you round up families in the bright of day and strip them away from parents, away from their kids, and ship them off to a country that they have not been in since they were 9 years old 30 years ago, that's racist. And then when you talk about people, you have direct documents showing money coming from the Russian government officials. You have Russian agencies hacking elections in support of Donald Trump, right? That is not fiction. That is not an abstraction. That is a real thing. So, and that's what drives me nuts about this. They pretend that these are just claims being made by Democrats as opposed to things that are grounded in evidence and reporting and investigative work. It's sickening.
And the one thing, this was an editorial that was published a few days before in another newspaper that was decided to get republished, aggregated within the Post-Gazette. The Newspaper Guild of Pittsburgh has this on their Facebook page. Pittsburgh Post-Gazette publisher John Robinson Block, the man behind the reprehensible editorial Reason as Racism that ran on Martin Luther King Day, has rejected the attached letter to the editor from 150 Pittsburgh Post-Gazette newsroom employees represented by the Newspaper Guild of Pittsburgh. Since you will not be able to read it in the Post-Gazette where it belongs, we offer it to you here. They published it on their Facebook page.
There you go, man. That's what you got to do. This is the union coming out and basically kind of making the statement.
This is their second paragraph in the letter. This editorial is a blight on the 231 years of service the Post-Gazette has provided its readers. Over its long life, it has rallied against racism and supported civil rights and justice for all. Given this history, the shameful and unconscionable editorial that ran on Martin Luther King Day, of all days, is an abomination that cannot go without condemnation from journalists committed to the fairness and accuracy and decency. To be clear, no member of the newspaper guild has anything to do with the editorial, and we stand together in solidarity against the bigotry, hatred, and divisiveness it engenders.
Frickin' man, bravo to you all, right? And you ever want to know, like, what are the kind of the other main reasons, other than kind of, like pay, workplace conditions, and all this other kind of stuff? One more reason about why you have unions, why you want unions, right? It's because you get unions, people standing behind, and the workers get a voice, and without having to worry about losing their frickin' jobs, right? For coming out and saying, no, we stand against this. Those very people that are supporting the excellent journalism, the investigations that I was talking about before, that's great. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said because your boss is a fucking racist, you won't get fired for calling him that.
Yeah, exactly. Crazy, man. I'm so glad you followed up on this story, because it's just sick, man. It's sick. Yeah, so I guess the Pennsylvania Democrats have finally got off the stick and decided to start doing something around sexual harassment. Is that what's going on, Sean?
Yes. So a year and a half ago at the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia, a Philadelphia-based delegate was sexually assaulted, groped by a delegate from the southeastern part of the state, from Delaware County. And there was a big media to do about it. And supposedly one of the things that was supposed to come out of this was a sexual harassment policy. This never happened. And it hasn't been until the past couple of months with the Me Too stuff that's been happening in the Pennsylvania Capitol, the stuff surrounding Dalen Leach and Thomas Caltagirone, that people have renewed this push for a sexual harassment policy. Reclaim Philadelphia, Keystone Progress, and a bunch of other grassroots organizations start circulating a petition demanding that there must be a sexual harassment policy. Supposedly, the Democratic Party has sent emails out to its committee members that they will finally be voting on a harassment policy in February at their winter meeting.
Finally. It only took them how long?
A year and a half. Well, I mean, these are the people who, lost to Donald Trump and lost to Pat Toomey. So, I mean, change is a little inert at times, I guess.
Yeah, and I think you made the important point about this, is that it was not until the pressure that was coming out of the Me Too movement, right, and the women legislators that have started.
I don't even think it would have been the Me Too movement or the women legislators. It's not until people started saying, "Where the hell is this policy you promised us a year and a half ago?"
No, but I'm saying I think that it would not have had the force, right, without people organizing in the street, right, without people kind of organizing and putting pressure, and suddenly people say, "Yeah, hey, wait a minute. Didn't you guys promise there was going to be this policy? Where is that policy after all?" And now they're scrambling to cover their asses.
Media pages,
huh?
What's been abundantly clear, if you look at their social media pages on Facebook and Twitter, they have not said a damn thing about this policy, about any of the sexual harassment cases that have happened or the issues that have happened. Instead, they have spent their time making fun or going after Lou Barletta and Scott Wagner.
Well, there you go.
This is an abysmal organizational failure that took this long for this to happen.
There you go. Crazy, man. So there we have that. They're off the stick now, and I hope that every single one of those people in leadership who have failed to do this stuff are going to be booted out of their jobs sometime soon with a progressive takeover of this frickin' party and state. That's just my wish list for 2018. But, in some potentially good news that we've got going on here, you were at the kind of doing some film work and things like this for the Pennsylvania gerrymandering case this past week.
Yes, this was a lawsuit brought up by the Public Interest Law Center. They have done other, voting rights, voting issues, cases. One of the things that they did, they challenged the congressional maps at the state Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court is now a 5-2 Supreme Court in a Democratic balance. I'm sure Republicans weren't thinking that when they drew the maps back in 2011 and 2012. But that when the Republicans had control of the courts, they thought they were going to have control of the courts for the next decade. They do not. And, odds are these maps are probably going to get thrown out. Pennsylvania will be the first state in the country to have a state Supreme Court to throw out the maps that they're asking to do if they do it. And the lawyers in this case are asking the Supremes to find the maps wholly unconstitutional under state law So therefore, it cannot be challenged under federal law in the United States Supreme Court.
That's really important. I mean, that's one of the most important parts about this case, is that this is, this ends here because it's coming under a state law. And so, again, a couple lessons here, right? Number one, the only reason why that we see like Democrats in control is because people came out and kind of put those people in control, right? That we see that these things matter. So the Supreme
Judges
Court
matter. Voting for
judges
matter.
freaking matter, right? It's so important. And I know for a lot of folks, this stuff it can get boring and tedious and things like this. But no, this is a perfect example of why this matters. So while the whole idea about gerrymandering, right, is you'll hear that a lot now in arguments that are made by people.
And they're also making another argument I forgot to put in here.
Yeah, go ahead.
They are also arguing that the maps get thrown out and the new sample maps to be used for the 2018 primary. The Republicans are against that. But their argument to the Republicans' argument, their counter-argument was saying law is being made by people, that are affecting lives, like going after health care, going after CHIP, going after Social Security, Medicare, all that stuff is being made under a map that's been found unconstitutional. The Republicans want to wait until 2020 to implement new maps, where the public interest law centers know these maps are unconstitutional. Their decisions that are being made under these maps by these representatives are affecting a lot of people's lives, and they must be thrown out before the primary. So I would expect a speedy decision to be brought down on this, and rumor has it that there are already sample maps in place that will most definitely change the Pennsylvania 7th Congressional District, which is one of the most heavily gerrymandered seats in the country. It sort of looked like Donald Duck kicking a rabbit, is what they say, but it is one of the most gerrymandered districts in the country. That will be changed. If you change that district there alone, you are going to affect 4 or 5 other districts surrounding that, just because of how badly drawn that map is.
Yeah, and I think that
changing that district up will have consequences all throughout southeastern Pennsylvania.
Well, and not only that, I mean, you've got Stephen Bloom's district, right?
Lou Barletta's.
Lou Barletta's district, right? I mean, it's like this. You've got Charlie Dent's district is like this. Charlie Dent's district, if you look at it, it's basically like a long line through the kind of Lehigh Valley around 222, right? And it's
like the Lou Barletta's district pretty much goes from just above to like 20 miles south of the Pennsylvania-New York border down through Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. It's over 100 miles long, 120 miles long.
Right, and I can't, I don't think either one of us can understate how big of a deal this will be. Right? And
also, people living in Reading, Pennsylvania, who have 3 different congressional people. That is, I've been saying this for years. This is taxation without representation. Pretty much. If you're living in a city like Reading, Pennsylvania, and you have 3, your district is split up amongst 3 different Republicans who have no interest in your city whatsoever.
Right. So you remember we've talked about this before on the program. We talked,
and it's one of the poorest cities in the country.
Right.
Too.
And gerrymandering, with gerrymandering, you have the kind of like the packing and cracking. Right, the idea that you either kind of like you take all your Democrats, right, your kind of opposition one, and you pack them into one district so that they're going to win like 80%, right, of the vote. Right, and so therefore you're able to kind of like have 2 or 3 other districts around that that will be solidly kind of Republican. So that's the kind of packing one. The cracking one is we do what you described in Reading, where you basically say, okay, we've got these kind of white kind of areas and more rural areas of here. We're going to kind of crack Reading, right, which is kind of more African American and Latino, right, and we're going to break that up and kind of like to kind of dilute any kind of power that those groups have and tack them on to the kind of ultra conservative kind of white rural districts in order to secure those as Republican seats. So that's the kind of thing that we can see disappearing, right, potentially, if the Supreme Court goes the way that it seems that it's going to go.
Yes.
So crazy, man. So you said that you're expecting this to have a fairly quick turnaround?
Yes. If they want to change it by the 2018, they're going to do it real soon.
Yeah. Any indications about when that might be coming down?
I do not know. Usually any typical Supreme Court hearing lasts 30 minutes to a half an hour. right, under the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court.
30 minutes and a half an hour are the same thing.
Well, 30 minutes to an hour. Sorry. I didn't realize I said half an hour. 30 minutes to an hour. This hearing lasted 3.5 hours.
Wow.
So I was sitting outside of that room for 3.5 hours with my tripod set up, waiting for that door to open to videotape people just walking out for B-roll footage for a documentary that someone's doing on gerrymandering.
There you have it, man. Well, a couple things to close out the section. So one, I mentioned this at the top of the show, but PASHE, Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education, as people may recall, Frank Brogan, the chancellor, left. And by all indications, it's because he's trying to get himself into the Trump administration, right, into the Department of Education, so that he can cozy up to Betsy DeVos. But right now they have an interim chancellor, and they had a press release this past week that basically saying that, yes, we are going to search for the new chancellor. We are looking for a visionary leader to guide the system redesign. And if you recall that there's been a couple reports now that have kind of come forward that's basically saying that what's happened in PASHE has been mismanagement, kind of poor leadership, that there's all things that kind of need to change, blah, 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 blah. There was an independent report. I think Frank Brogan expected the independent report to come back and say that, yes, we got to kind of break the union and we've got to kind of close down the schools. And the report came back and did not say that. So Frank Brogan kind of got out of town, and now we have an interim chancellor. And now, basically, the Board of Governors is looking to appoint or find a new chancellor and to carry out the redesign. So we're going to be following that closely. We don't have a whole lot of news on that now. The one thing to kind of recall, the last time that they searched for a chancellor under Guido Pacchini, he basically had gag orders placed on everyone on the search committee so that nobody knew who the candidates were, so that you couldn't actually independently evaluate them. So the public didn't have access to that. It wasn't until the very last minute that we even learned who the candidates were before they appointed Frank Brogan. So it's going to be interesting that the head of the board right now, Shapira, she's Cynthia Shapira. She is a Wolf appointee. We don't have full indications yet in terms of what the rules are going to be around this search, but we're going to follow this. And then my teaser is going to be, I can't talk a whole lot about this right now, but we've been working stuff on kind of locally at Kutztown, and that there's going to be some stuff rolling out that I think it's going to have a little bit of an impact on this chancellor search. It's a little bit, I don't know, we're just going to toss a little grenade into the fray, so to speak. So all I want to say, if people want to have an indication of what I'm talking about, if you go to ragingchickenpress.org and you do a search for Susquehanna Wall Street on the Susquehanna. It was a piece I wrote back in 2014, I think. Basically looking at some of the kind of accounting schemes, the financial schemes that PASHE was using and PASHE universities were using as a way of hiding the amount of revenue that they actually have, right? I worked with James Straczynski also a while back for a piece that he did in Salon that was also kind of digging into these accounting schemes that's been going on in PASHE. And all I'm going to say is that we've got some major breaking news on this indication coming up in the next couple weeks or so. But so stay tuned with that.
I was going to say, and I guess I can end off this. I got some news for myself.
Oh, please do tell.
I don't want to get into the specifics of it, but this past summer, I made the decision that I want to get involved in 2018 somehow, doing more electoral stuff. And looks like I have something that might be coming up down the pike. So we're super excited about this. Hopefully everything happens, and we'll, it's going to be a fun time.
Fingers crossed, folks. Fingers crossed. And Sean will have more on that soon, too, as well. So teasers.
It might not be right down the pike, but, it's right down the pike, but I might not tease it, might not come out fully about it. But, yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, awesome. Well,
it's an opportunity I've been looking for a while. And it's my way of getting involved with, turning Pennsylvania blue.
There you go. And, if you want to find out more about that individually and personally, you want to know about these things, you could probably talk to Sean personally at the Keystone Progress Summit. Yes, I got the plug in, right? The Keystone Progress Summit, if longtime listeners know that we tend to go there every year. And this year, it is going to be held. It's always at the Hilton in downtown Harrisburg. It's going to be February 2nd through 3rd. This promises to be a really cool summit. Dan Dubé, who's now the new executive director of Keystone Progress, this is going to be his first summit. We've got speakers like, for example, Crystal Ball, founders of the People's House Project, Democratic Operative. You also got Rafael Diaz. He's a Keystone Progress organizer who's going to be one of the keynotes down there.
Also, Lancaster Stands Up.
Lancaster Stands Up down there. And if you look at some of the people on the agenda, I'm telling you, promises here. You're going to see folks that are, coming out of Educated Voters PA. Planned Parenthood will be there. Ceasefire PA will be there. Put People First will be there. You've got folks dealing with everything from, running effective campaigns to why to have so few women running in office out in Western Pennsylvania and how do we change it. This is an opportunity for people to come together, to kind of organize, to hear what's happening around the state, looking for ways of getting involved, right, and helping build a progressive movement. And I have to say, I'm really hoping that, Dan, kind of taking the reins of Keystone Progress, has got a lot of energy going in, right, and I'm really looking to see what he can bring to the table to help kind of reinvigorate this kind of this space as a space for progressive organizing. And like I was saying before, Raging Chicken Press will have a table there. We'll be in the main lobby. We're going to have a bunch of our writers there, so we want you to kind of come out and check it out. We'll have some giveaways. All I can say is that, get out there. If you want more information about this, basically what you can do is you can go to, let me be sure I got this right, the www.paprogressivesummit.net. paprogressivesummit.net. You get information about the summit and how to register and so on. And really, we hope to see you there. We'd love to be able to, meet a whole bunch of you. And usually what we do, just so you know, and we're going to do this again this year, is usually we set a kind of a particular time and place on that Friday night to kind of to get together, right? Just to get together with people, with our listeners, our readers, and just to kind of gather more informally. So we hope to see you out there, folks. Again, this is February 2nd to 3rd, 2018. This is in Harrisburg, and you can go to paprogressivesummit.net for more information. All right, so before we get into the last call, Sean.
Yes, there is a church in Dallastown, York County, that has a sign out in front of it. You know what it says?
Please tell me.
Blessed are those from the shitholes. Luke 17, 11, and 19.
Blessed are those from the shitholes. We'll leave it at that, folks. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We'll be right back with Last Call. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Over the past 6 years, we've brought unapologetic, progressive, activist media to Pennsylvania and beyond. We've helped hold those in power accountable and shine a light on some amazing activist work. We've broken national stories and established a reputation as an aggressive, independent media site. As newsrooms close and traditional journalists lose their jobs, hard-hitting, investigative news suffers. If we care about our democracy, we have to find new, sustainable models of journalism. And frankly, no one's going to do it for us. After the Trump election, we dug in even deeper. Thanks to some longtime members, one-time donations, and a shift in other resources, we brought on more writers and started paying them. Now we're doubling down and want to expand our infrastructure and pay our writers even more. We need to invest in our media if we have a chance to resist the unprecedented assault on democracy, working families, women's rights, and our planet. History will remember the choices we make today. So take a minute to become a member of Raging Chicken Press. For as little as $5 a month, the price of a local craft beer or a cup of coffee, you will be supporting homegrown progressive journalists and media activists. Go to ragingchickenpress.org and click on the Support and Membership tab to become a member. Leave a one-time donation or learn about other ways that you can help. We don't have billionaire backers. Keeping progressive, activist media going strong depends on you. Thank you for all your help and support. Keep up the fight. Welcome back to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. It's the last call. Here's where we talk beer and space news, everybody. Yes. Because where else you know, if you're to talk space news, you got to have beer. I think that's just kind of how it works. Sean, I've got to see this. You know, I've been a little bit kind of going a little wonky on the space news this week. I had to whittle it down to just a kind of a couple stories, but there's some kind of cool stuff here. And I'm going to just get on my hobby horse. So if you want to take a nap now, you can. Yep, there he goes, stretching away. So two things, okay. Yeah, he's already yawning. He can barely even kind of like stand, even though they're listening. So two things. So you remember, kind of give you the rundown for a long time. If you've been listening, you know what I'm talking about. For the people, if this might be the first time you're tuning in, you're hearing about space news. One of the things that that I've been paying a lot of attention to is what I've been taught, kind of the advance of galactic capitalism. And yes, it may sound sci-fi-ish and all this other kind of stuff, but the crazy thing about this stuff is this is for the first time. All of the privatization of space is really beginning to come together in ways that I find extraordinarily concerning, because it is kind of like a free marketeers, ultra profiteers wet dream, as a way of grabbing profits that are like heretofore untold. Okay. And so here's what we're seeing. The same kind of dynamics, it should not surprise anybody, that we're seeing in all the public sectors right now, we're seeing in the whole space industry. So Obama was basically like presided over the end of the space shuttle, right? The end of like publicly sponsored kind of missions, publicly sponsored oversight of the space program. So instead of having NASA run shuttles, right, U.S. kind of from the U.S. land going on, basically what he chose to do instead was to privatize that, right? And not just privatize it in terms of like, oh, here's this company that's down the street, but privatize that globally. So since Obama presided over the kind of the end of the space shuttle program with no plans at all to replace it with something else, we've had to rely upon Russia, right, and the Russian space program to get astronauts and supplies. Astronauts primarily to the International Space Station, right. So now Boeing and SpaceX are kind of both kind of competing. To become like, you know, to build the next generation of launch vehicles that will get humans to the International Space Station and actually pave the way for explorations of the moon and Mars and that kind of stuff. But guess what? Both of them, SpaceX and Boeing, are way behind schedule. So NASA had wanted to basically start sending humans to the space station kind of, you know, pretty short order. And that doesn't look like that can happen. So it's potentially in jeopardy. And what's that going to mean is that means that it's going to cost the government, it's going to cost us all more to pay these for-profit companies in order to kind of to get humans out there. Or we're going to depend upon Russia, maybe China, right, to get people up to the International Space Station, right? Maybe that's not a big deal to you, but this is kind of what's going on. So basically, the organization, the country that is basically involved with manipulating, helping to try to at least manipulate our past elections, we've got all sorts of kind of like black market mob state dealings going on in Russia. That's who we're going to rely upon in getting people up to the International Space Station. That's pretty crazy. So there's that on the one side. On the other side, just to kind of frame this, is that Luxembourg, right, that little kingdom, right, in the middle of Europe there, is basically positioning itself to be like, I don't know, the like privateer's playground, right, in the space industry. So why does this matter? So I want you to read just a little bit. So this is an official Luxembourg like government space, right? This is not a private website. This is the Luxembourg's government, right? The Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, right, is technically what it's called. So This is what it says. Luxembourg aims to contribute to the peaceful exploration and sustainable utilization of space resources for the benefit of humankind. Sounds great, right? Well, get down a little bit here next. Luxembourg provides a unique legal, regulatory, and business environment enabling private investors and companies to explore and use space resources. The identification and utilization of space resources is fast becoming a reality, driven by a revolution in space technology, accelerating exploration of outer space, and the eventual scarcity of certain resources on Earth. Building on its long history as a forefront of commercial satellite communication industry, Luxembourg aims to play a leading role in the exploration and utilization of these resources. So what does this mean? So why that matters is because they've got all the pieces together here, right? You're saying they're designing and have designed, right, a regulatory environment that is conducive to the privatization of the kind of the non-Earth environments, right, for outer space, for the purpose of resource extraction, right? And you see how they're framing the argument here. It's already framed within a shock doctrine mentality, and frankly, it's a shock doctrine that's got some real bite behind it. Because we have seen absolutely no willingness, especially now that we've got the Trump administration, to basically to get off the pipe, to get off the oil, and to kind of shift into a different way of thinking. Now, Naomi Klein is basically saying this kind of extractivism, this kind of idea that we're just going to exploit the planet and kind of carve it out, dig holes, poke holes, suck it dry. There's no indication that's going to stop anywhere soon. So if you still need those resources and you still want to depend on extractivism, where do you go? Well, you go to the moon, you go to the asteroids, you go to Mars, right? That's really what's kind of behind these long-term folks. Anyway, I've been spending a lot of time watching some of the private from space companies, like someone that are playing around with the stock market, wanting to go to kind of publicly traded companies, but most of these companies are privately held. Right, and they're the ones who are pushing to kind of like deregulate space. So you're going to see me writing about some of this stuff in the coming weeks and months because I want to start making a case that we need to pay attention to this because it's not just about space. Is that once they get that regulatory environment, right? Think about what this means. Is like suppose that suddenly we're able to kind of discover additional resources on some other asteroids that we can actually begin to mine. Right? Basically, what the message then is that we do not need to change the way we do things, right? But now even fewer people will have a concentrated wealth and make that possible. And their wealth, you think it's crazy to have so many billionaires right now? We're going to be talking about trillionaires like by dozens and hundreds moving forward that will control that economy. And they will essentially hold the rest of us hostage behind a dying planet. So that's my pitch now here for what's going on right now, Sean. I thought if I ended on dying planet, that would be a good thing to wake you back up because you care about that.
I was actually turning my volume down at that point.
Oh, man. So, okay, dying planet. I guess it's time for a drink.
Well, I'll be doing a little bit of that this weekend. I am going to go to this bar with my couple friends from college. We reserved a table at this bar called Mr. G's out in Susquehanna Township. It's about a few miles away from here. It's on 6th Street on the East Shore side of the river, my side of the river. And it is the unofficial Eagles bar of Central Pennsylvania. And we're going to watch the Eagles game there at 6:30. We're going to get there around 5 o'clock, get the party going. And the only requirement is you got to wear your Eagles attire to get in.
Oh, really? You got to wear it? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
I got a hoodie. I have like a nice like Christmas beanie that I got, so I will be all nice and bundled up for the game.
There you have it, man. You know, it's funny. My daughter was asking me because they have like an Eagles Day at school, right? And we have no Eagles stuff, right? So I have none, right? I said, and I have my.
Yeah, you got that shitty tail hanging on your fucking door at Kutztown.
No, I've got the towel and I've got the Palomalo jerseys, right, for the Steelers. You bet.
I'll tell you one thing: living out in Central Pennsylvania, it's always good watching Pittsburgh teams fail.
Yeah, I know.
It's Schadenfreude.
Yeah, I didn't see it. Like I've said before at the show, ever since we had the sexual assault charges and rape charges against the Roethlisberger and the kind of the inaction by the Steelers ownership and stuff like that. I've lost a taste for really following things closely. And then, that coupled with the fact that I had really young kids that were demanding almost all of my time just to kind of, so I could get everything done. So I haven't been following as closely, but I do understand that that the Steelers lost like horrendously in an embarrassing fashion on us. I guess it was the most embarrassing loss since the Chargers loss in the playoffs years ago.
Yeah, one of the things, like, I've shied away from watching the Flyers and Phillies over the past couple of years, but the one thing I made sure I kept up on is the Eagles. Just I don't have a TV in my apartment. I explain it's actually like hard to explain to people. Mm-hmm. Well, what do you do? I don't have a TV. Well, what do you do? But when I watch the Eagles game, I go to the bar across the street, have a couple beers, watch for a half, come back, I'll put it on my computer, and listen to the rest on the radio or something like that.
Yeah. There you go, man. Way to go. Well, if you're down in the Bucks County area and the Percy area, and you want to watch the Eagles game, you can. Free Will Brewing is going to be showing the game. They've got like 100-foot screen that they're going to have people there. They've expanded their the seating area, so they basically put a bigger screen so they can have more seating. Because for the last Eagles game, they had such a great turnout. So they're opening at noon. It's on Sunday, right? Yeah, Sunday. They're opening at noon at Sunday. The game starts like around 6:30, 6:40. There's going to be food there from Down to Earth Cafe. So if you get out to Free Will, good luck with that. Should be an
Get
awesome
started
time.
early.
Yeah. Well, that's what they're planning, and they've got special permission. I guess they're staying open as long as the game does, as long as the game is open. So they could stay past their normal operating hours to make sure that people get to there right to the end.
And one of the things. Also, so something cool that Neshaminy Creek is doing this weekend. Neshaminy Creek Brewing down in Croydon, which is down by Bristol, off the riverfront, pretty much Delaware River, Bucks County, pretty much the other side of the planet. If you live,
yeah, right.
For those who don't live in the Philadelphia area, for those of you who do, I'm from Horsham originally, which is like right where the air base is at.
I just drove by your house the other night, actually. By the way,
nice.
Yeah.
So in order to drive from Horsham to the Neshaminy Creek Brewing in Croydon is like hell on earth.
Yeah.
It's almost like an hour drive to go 10 miles.
Yeah.
In the Philadelphia area, just because of how bad Street Road is, County Line Road and stuff like that. But if you're down in that part of the Bucks County, well, tough luck now. Neshaminy Creek is having a free concert there this weekend. They're bringing the Menzingers, which is like a local emo punk band from the Jersey area. And every year they have the Menzingers come in and do a free concert. So they're doing a free show inside the Neshaminy Creek Brewing with the Menzingers. And one of my friends, from Twitter and Facebook, one of the political junkies that I know, Eric Rosso, he got tickets to it, and he's going to be having a fun time down there.
Oh, man, we should get a report, an update from him how it went last week, or how it went. Have you been to Neshaminy Creek?
Yeah, I've been there a few times.
Yeah, see, I every time I'm about to go down there, I just kind of look for I'm like, there is no good way to get there.
Yeah, so, it is like,
and forget it.
It's like hell on earth getting there.
Oh my God, it really is. I've been down. Before I knew where it was, I can't remember why I had to go down that way, right outside Croydon. I had to go years ago, and it was it took forever. And it's a shame because I like a lot of the stuff that they put out and things, but whatever. Other cool things, right? Saucony Creek Brewery, they just kind of put out the teaser for they've got a new beer that they're going to be releasing. It's called Buckwheat King Cake, and they're going to be debuting it at the brewery on Fat Tuesday, folks, right? On February 13th. So we still got a ways out here, a few weeks out. And they're going to be having a whole week of celebration planned around Mardi Gras. But here's a description of their beer, right? This is brown sugar, buckwheat, and a blend of sweet cake-like malts creates the base for Zydeco's Cake Ale. A touch of cinnamon and nutmeg and spice, while the lemon peels give lingering notes of citrus in the background. The icing on the cake emerges from a sweet touch of lactose coupled with a final conditioning on whole vanilla beans. Voila! Cake in a glass. So there it is, folks. I'm interested, right? They got me. My mouth is watering as I read that. What's that?
Sold.
Yeah, exactly.
So instead of being at the faculty meeting, during the free hour on Tuesday, you're going to be at Saucony Creek to get some beer.
Well, you know what? I got my schedule adjusted now too as well because I whatever. I'm not going to get into the minutia of my life.
Is it adjusted around your beer drinking
No, actually, like I said, I haven't had very much beer lately because I've been knocking the pounds off. I mean, I got at least 10 off now. So
that makes one of us.
Yeah, well, it's been helping. It actually has, and I'm not just that. I mean, it's not just the beer. It's actually starting to stop, shoving so much crap in my mouth. That's the problem. But so I teach on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I teach early. And so I actually got a class, an 8 a.m. class now, which I asked for, right? So it's not a punishment, it's a desire. So that basically I can get home in time for the kids. So, but that means on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm done by about like 1:30, 2 o'clock. So it makes it gives me time. I could swing by there on that Tuesday kind of, and pick up some beer and still get home for my kids. So that's, I'm psyched about that. I'm going to put my growlers in my car. Let's put it like that.
So here was something pretty cool.
Yeah.
This past Saturday, there's a bar called Sturgis Speakeasy in Midtown.
Yeah.
And they had a bourbon barrel beer tap takeover Saturday night.
Man.
And some of this stuff lasted, it's still on there, but they had some of the beers went pretty quickly. One of the ones that went quickly that I was able to get a few drinks of, like 8-ounce pours, or nothing like big, is the Founders Canadian Breakfast Stout. So it's the Founders Breakfast Stout, right? You have
which
KBS,
is great
which is
on its
Kentucky.
own.
What's that?
Which is great on its own.
Yeah. Then you have the Kentucky Breakfast Stout, which is the KBS, which is the that beer in bourbon barrels for a year. And they have the Canadian Breakfast Stout, which is the bourbon barrel aged. It's KBS with Canadian maple syrup added to the barrels.
Oh my God!
It was freaking phenomenal. It was the first time in like 3 years that they brewed it. It looks like it's part of their Backstage series, so they're going to try to do it once a year now. And it was fucking amazing. They had Trogs Impending Descent on, which is a bourbon barrel stout. They had the Abyss from Deschutes, which is a bourbon barrel and wine barrel blended stout. That's really good. Yeah.
Man, you make my mouth water. That's some of my favorite stuff, too, as well.
So I was trying some of them this week.
Yeah. Having a few. Just having a few. You're having a few?
I only had a couple each time I was there because, gotta watch the calories. And an 8-ounce pour is really like a 6-ounce pour because the headspace and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But still, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, anything else for the good of the order, Sean?
Oh, Pizza Boy.
Pizza. Oh my God! How could I forget? See, I didn't scroll down far enough. Pizza Boy.
Yeah, Pizza Boy has their blueberry permasmile out. It's their wild aged sour. It's a barrel fermented. It's a wild barrel sour. You've had some of them, right, in the past? The wild sours?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's the permasmile barrel aged beer, at least sitting in the bottle for the past 9 months to a year now, aged in a barrel for that long as well. And they added blueberries to it this time. The last time it was peach and apricot. I have one bottle of that left, and that was from 2 years ago.
Oh, man. I can remember, yeah, I mean, I think I can't remember which one I got. Was there a blackberry one at one point?
Might have been. I know we had the Creek Sour when you came out once.
Yeah, I remember because I got some. Because it was right around the time which Pizza Boy, they were getting all people piling on about the cost of the bottles. Remember this? Right,
yes.
And I think Haters Tears came out of that too as well eventually, right?
Haters. So people were bitching about the beer prices. These sours do get expensive. They're between $25, $35 a bottle. I think they're worth it for those who are out there. But people were on Facebook were complaining about the prices. So the owner, the brain trust of Pizza Boy, the brewer, the owner, came up with a Goza, which is a salted sour, salted wheat sour you have in the summertime. And they called it Haters Tears. So it had a baby crying on it. And then on the back of the glass, they made their own glassware for this beer. It said salted with the tears and the entitled.
That's awesome.
Which is like one of the things why I love about Pizza Boy.
Yeah.
It is the most unprofessional punk rock type of place. We're all we all listen to punk rock there. It's that type of DIY.
Right.
Us against them attitude.
No, I love it. And I like that. The other thing I got to say about that too is with the sours, they did, and it wasn't that just came out with the Haters Tier, right? You kind of explained it, right? I mean, it's kind of like, look, here's how much fruit's going into this. This is what the cost is on this stuff. And this sits around for a while. It sits in a
room for a year. That room has to be kept at a certain temperature. I'm paying my employees all over $10 an hour. You know, it's like, gotta keep the lights on, gotta pay for this, gotta pay for that, and of course, you're gonna be.
No, and it's like, it's the kind of thing, right? It's not meant to be. That's not meant to be something that, you know, you go out and you buy a 6-pack on to go that kind of stuff, right? It's meant to be something special, you know. I mean, and that's what I, you know, the way I approach it. I mean, there's people that, you know, they'll go to a party or something like that, a dinner party at somebody's house or something like this, and they'll go out and get a nice bottle of wine, and they'll spend kind of upwards of that. Right. So, I mean, that's the way I kind of always think about it. It's like, yeah, special occasion, something like this, you know, you set it aside, you know, stuff like that is, you know, you savor it, you know, so.
I mean, I still have some of the intangible ale bottles from 3 years ago.
I do. I have one more left. I have one more left. Yep.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I had a couple. I had a Planet of Dreamers a couple months ago, which was the sea salt, Himalayan sea salt and blood mummified oranges.
Yep. I remember that one.
In a bread sour. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you just sit on them and hold them for a bit.
Yep, and when the time seems right, you savor it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. Well, cool, man. You got any kind of other plans for the weekend other than working in Eagles?
Nope, just about it.
Awesome, man. I said, I don't even know what the heck I'm doing. Oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm freaking finishing off all my syllabi and all the preparations because I go back to work next week. So,
classes start next week.
Yeah, wah. Kevin's got to go back to work, right? You can't sit around anymore and have a break. Wah.
You greedy professors.
Yes, exactly, right? Doing nothing. So, so look for it. So next week, hopefully that's going to put me, I actually work better in that kind of situation too, and I have like a schedule that I can work around as opposed to kind of, just whatever. Again, I'm not going to get into it. Anyways, that's all we got for today, folks. Wishing you a happy weekend. All luck to the Eagles fans out there this week. I am pulling for the Eagles because I think they, again, it's just, frankly, because I can't deal with another round of Eagles fans kind of like all depressed. Really, is what it comes down to. So that's why I'm pulling for the Eagles. No, but seriously, good luck this weekend, all you Eagles fans out there. And we will be back next week. And for the next round of insanity in politics, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Become a member. Patreon.com/RCPress. See you next week. See ya!
This is not a mistake with their immigration system. This is the point of their immigration system. Fuck Donald Trump. Fuck every single person who is an accomplice in this. It's disgusting. This is Nazi shit.